Today I'm going to be talking about a topic that I think is highly relevant and will become increasingly relevant in the future, and that is the nature of profit, medicine, and cures. And specifically, what brought this on, independent of my own thoughts on this, was an article that I discovered a while back that actually is almost a year old now, published in Ars Technica with the title, "Is Curing Patients a Sustainable Business Model?" Goldman Sachs analysts ask. And the idea behind this is that one-shot cures are simply not a sustainable business model that long-term lead to decent profits. And it seems almost undeniable that's the case. If you cure something once and for all, your pool of customers for that cure is going to dwindle because, in particular, if it's an infectious disease, it's going to be reduced in prevalence. And specifically, the example they cite, the real-world example, is of hepatitis C. Quote, "Gilead's rapid rise and fall of its hepatitis C franchise highlights one of the dynamics of an effective drug that permanently cures disease, resulting in a gradual exhaustion of the prevalent pool of patients," the analyst wrote. The report noted that diseases such as common cancers, where the quote-unquote incident pool remains stable, are less risky for business, end quote. And this raises all kinds of interesting ethical questions and all kinds of interesting pragmatic questions, because we would have to fundamentally be torn on this issue. For one thing, people work to make profit. They don't work for free. If you ask a bunch of people why they're moving a sack of bricks or a bunch of bricks from plot A to plot B, it's very unlikely they're just doing it for fun. In fact, it's far more likely they're getting paid to do it. Most work needs to be remunerated in some sense because it's not work people would typically do. When it comes to medicine, there seem to be additional issues that crop up. The notion that medicine or health or cures are a human right, largely a viewpoint proffered by the left, but I think it taps into almost, one might say, deep ethical intuitions we have. That is something that you wouldn't find in bricklaying or plumbing or what have you. Because if you just think about it from a very visceral mindset, there's something almost knee-jerky about the way we respond to denying people medical treatment. The idea that someone who couldn't afford something would be denied medical treatment as a consequence, suffer even poorer health or perhaps even death, seems anathema to most people, and yet the profit model maintains continuity. People need to be remunerated for their work. But just imagine that Salk in coming up with a vaccination for polio in the 50s specifically, we're just going to do this on a stage-by-stage basis, and we're not going to offer a final cure. Instead, we're going to offer alleviation of the problem. You see where I'm getting at. Most people would have, at the very least from an emotional perspective point of view, felt some sense of moral outrage. And so these companies are caught in a type of ethical dilemma. I think some of these pharmaceutical companies are the least ethically concerned and regulated entities on the planet in some respects. But nonetheless, even if they don't have a particular set of ethical guidelines, they still need to deal with the public and the reception offered by the public. And there's a bit of an antecedent to all of this. And this was the controversy surrounding the now imprisoned Martin Shkreli when he decided to engage in a price hike of the medication Daraprim, which was for a very specific illness. And I don't need to go into the details there, but he was basically plastered all over the media as this invidious, evil, cunning man who's just trying to profiteer and profit off the misery and suffering of other people. And this plays into this notion of moral outrage that a lot of people feel in their gut when they hear, oh, they're being denied a cure, or they're not allowed to partake in this medication. But we need to engage with this issue with a sense of realpolitik, a sense of what is actually going on here. And there is a conflict of interest. On the one hand, work needs to be remunerated. People who engage in any type of production will want to make a profit off of that. And if the profits aren't coming, then you need to call into question the endeavor itself. It's pretty obvious. That is, as I stated before, pretty obvious when it comes to other things such as painting, plumbing, car manufacture, etc., etc. It's not as obvious when it comes to these issues of cures and medicine. And so by now, polio has by and large disappeared from the Western world, thanks to vigorous vaccination research, etc. But the idea that you would offer cures in a piecemeal fashion to people seems to be almost a walking in eggshells position for the public, at the very least. And why do I think this is an important issue? Because I think going forward, particularly with gene editing and gene therapy, but not just that, there will be many more one-shot cures, for lack of a better term, on offer, and it might come to blows on the matter of, will I profit from this, or does this person need to be denied this cure? Should this cure be offered in stages? Even the idea that gene editing and gene therapy in general will probably only be accessible in the initial stages to the best of the best could be anathema to many people, because generally speaking, the wealthiest people tend to have the best genomes, not always, but usually, at least in terms of IQ and other attributes, not always, but usually on average. And so you're already giving them an advantage, and you're disadvantaging people further who don't have these natural gifts. So this is going to be an increasingly thorny issue, I think an increasingly relevant issue, be it the issue of specific cures for specific diseases such as hepatitis C or anything else, or just the notion of increased or improved health offered by gene editing technology. And the question will naturally arise, should companies, one, be allowed to offer piecemeal solutions or just get rid of the profit model altogether? Well, I don't think they're going to get rid of the profit model altogether. It's not going to happen. And so there will be a continual tension here, and I don't see a good resolution to this. I think the rich will continue to get richer, as it were, and the poor will continue to get poorer just because of the natural distribution of bell curves and how things work. And I'm trying to think of a reasonable compromise where people say, yes, people need to make a profit, but we can't deny people cures or the ability to improve their health. But one thing I do think needs to happen is a public discussion of this issue, because without this public discussion, I don't think we're going to make any headway. It's a very serious issue, potentially, because most people aren't going to be able to afford, say, gene editing technology or some of these one-shot cures. And to the extent that they can, they will then create a shrinking customer pool for people making these medical products. So I'm not really sure what to think going forward, but I do know that this is an issue that very few people are talking about, and I think it needs to be addressed politically at the very least. Nominally, I don't think politicians get a whole lot done, and it needs to be something talked about more frequently. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I will have more to say on various issues if I'm still alive, and I will check you out later. Enjoy your weekend. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.